And you will know my name is the Lord.
That I am God.
Damn you all!
Here we are again. Welcome one, welcome all to the one and the only Junk Shop Library channel, home of Improv Bible Study, the Atheist Bible Study, where we read every last word of the King James Version of 1611 because it's in the public domain, and proceed to rip at a new asshole from a modern humanist atheist perspective. It should be noted before we get started that, much like the original source material, this Bible study is under no circumstances whatsoever appropriate for children. If you are children, you should go get your family-friendly atheist content. You have been warned. This show, and the others like it here at Mayhem and Foolishness Productions, would not be possible without the ongoing support of my fantastic patrons. These folks kept the channel on the air during a very stressful time in all of our lives, and continue to support it during these strange and stressful times in which we find ourselves stranded together. In a special and particular, I got to shout out my top tier patron, my genuine calfskin level patron, first Patreon supporter, and my friend, the one and only Mr. Paul Kamish. Paul has gone above and beyond in his support of the channel and his unequaled drive to help the channel grow. Thank you for all you do, my friend. I see the chat beginning to fill up. We've got some usual suspects, including my wonderful spouse. Good to see you all. Good to see you, one and all. All right. Don't have much in the way of announcements. Still sick. Still no clue with what. So if I'm dragging a little here and there, that's what's up with that. Last week we polished off the book of the prophet Ezekiel. A long walk for very little goddamn payoff. We started the book with four-faced monsters on unicycles. Credit for that phrase goes to Lisa for Truth. And then proceeded to woe unto the enemies of the Lord for about 50 fucking chapters, and precious little goddamn else ever happened. We hope things will be a little more eventful as we turn today to the book of the prophet Daniel. But, as some of y'all know, and some of y'all better than others, the mere fact of a book starting off eventful is no guarantee that it will eventful continue. So let us see here. Daniel, chapter 1. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. We are going back in time, it seems. Awesome. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat, and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now, among these were of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. For he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. Sorry, that hyphen caught me off guard. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now, God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat, and water to drink. Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So we consented to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all dreams and visions. Now, at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them. And among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in all manners of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in his kingdom. And Daniel continued even unto the 1st year of King Cyrus. And there we have the 1st chapter of the book of Daniel. Riveting anecdote about diet. Absolutely fucking enthralling, wasn't it? All right, so Nebuchadnezzar sacks Jerusalem. Poor Jerusalem done got sacked again. Yo, pardon me. It's allergy season and my nose itcheth. Okay, so poor Jerusalem gets sacked again, this time by Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar decides that he wants some household servants from among the elite of the house of Israel. So he has some of them rounded up and put into quarantine, essentially. He says, give them the finest food, and in, 3 years, something like that, they can come serve me in my palace. Well, Daniel doesn't want to eat the finest food. He wants to eat pulse instead. And I have no fucking clue what that means. Let's see. Preach, precept, proclaim, proud, purify, a little too far. Pulse, noun. Leguminous plants or their seeds. Beans. Legumes. They went on a peas and water diet for 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, after they had managed to talk the master of the eunuchs or the prince of the eunuchs, it goes back and forth. Lentils, maybe so, yeah. That would make sense. After they talk him into giving them this special diet, despite the fact that the king told them specifically to give them fine meat and good wine, from his own table, the personal stock of meat and wine for Nebuchadnezzar himself, he gave to these kids. But Daniel ain't having it. And lo and behold, at the end of 10 days, their faces are fatter on their lentil and water diet than are those of everybody else who was eating the meat and drinking the wine. And we skip ahead to the end of the quarantine period, after having said that the master of the eunuchs switched out the diet apparently for everybody, since apparently fat of face is a good thing for the servants of Nebuchadnezzar. Skips ahead to the end of the quarantine period. What was it? 3 years, whatever it was. And they go to serve the king. And for no readily discernible reason, Daniel is gifted with the gift of dream interpretation, and all four of them, the newly renamed Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Belteshazzar, because heaven knows, why would you want to call somebody Daniel when you could go with Belteshazzar? They turn out to be wiser and more learned in the sciences and able to do prophecy and stuff, more so even than all of Nebuchadnezzar's Chaldean magicians. And that's the end of the chapter. Not a lot to get your teeth into there. I tell you what, though, I'd take the king's burger over the lentil soup any damn day, but that's just me. Maybe that's why I don't have the gift of interpreting visions. I don't have enough lentils in my diet, enough leguminous plants and or their seeds. Maybe that's where wisdom comes from. Legumes. Not a lot to get your teeth into here, so we're going to move on to chapter 2. Wasn't that cute? Get your teeth into. Ha-ha. Because we just talked about food for 15 minutes. Isn't that clever? Like and subscribe. Daniel, chapter 2. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians, and the astrologers, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, for to shew the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will shew the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if ye shew the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore shew me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will shew the interpretation." The king answered and said, "I know of a certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can shew me the interpretation thereof." The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, "There is not a man upon the earth that can shew the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, lord, or ruler that asks such things at any magician, or astrologer, or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth. And there is none other that can shew it before the king, except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh." For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, "Why is the decree so hasty from the king?" And Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and he would shew the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto David in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and hast made known unto me now what we desired of thee, for thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter." Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, "Destroy not the wise men of Babylon, bring me in before the king, and I will shew unto the king the interpretation." Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, "I have found a man of the captives of Judah that will make known unto the king the interpretation." The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, "Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof?" Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, "The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers, shew unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter. And he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation of the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like a chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, forasmuch as thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall not mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Forasmuch as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, Of a truth it is, that your God is a God of gods, and a Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, seeing that thou couldest reveal this secret. Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. And there we have the second chapter of the book of Daniel, a little longer than it needed to be. Okie dokie. So, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, falls asleep one night and dreams a dream. Funny that. He wakes up in the morning and he's all stressed out because of this dream, but he can't remember it, or at least he pretends not to be able to. It's hard to tell. So, he calls all of his wizards and his enchanters and his Chaldeans and his astrologers and his all manner of wise and learned smart fuckers. And once they are gathered before him, presumably real fucking happy to be waked up in the middle of the night to come charging out to the king's palace for no readily discernible reason, he says, Hey, smart fuckers, I had a dream that I forgot. Tell me about the dream that I forgot and explain it to me. These people look at each other, and they look at the king. They say, I've got no offense, your majesty, O great and wise ruler of all that is to be surveyed, may you live forever and a day. How's about, tell you what, we've got a how shall we put this? I don't want to say more realistic, because of course you are the king and ruler over all the earth, and beloved of the gods, and commander of heads to be chopped off and shit. So we propose that you tell us what you dreamed, and then we'll tell you how to interpret it. And the king says, no, I don't fucking feel like it. I dreamed a dream, and you're going to tell me what was the dream that I dreamed, and you're going to tell me what is the interpretation of the dream that I dreamed. And the sorcerers and astrologers and magicians and Chaldeans and so forth and so on, and they look at each other, and they look at the king, and they say, look, ain't no motherfucker alive can do that. It would take a fucking god. So tell us what you dreamed, and we'll wise man-splain it to you. King says, I'll go you one better. I've got a better idea than that. How about this? How about this? You tell me what I fucking dreamed, and then you tell me how to interpret it, and if you don't, I'm gonna have your ass smoked. Gonna chop off your heads and turn your houses into a dunghill. And the astrologers leave to convene and consult. The king says, well, that didn't exactly go as planned. I'm used to getting my goddamn way. Hey, Arioch, captain of the guard, how's about you go out and smite to death every last wizard in my kingdom? Because I'm the king, and I'm pissed off. So Arioch, captain of the guard, goes out to commence to smiting. And for no readily discernible reason, he decides to start with the Jerusalem diaspora wise men. He comes barging in the middle of the night and says, be prepared to be smoked. And Daniel, Belteshazzar, says, what the hell is the rush? Why are we getting smote all of a sudden? It's not exactly as though we're depleting the king's stores of wine. We've been on a leguminous plants and seeds diet for the last 5 years. And Arioch, captain of the guard, says, well, here's the thing. The king wanted the wizards and the Chaldeans to tell him what he dreamed and how to interpret it. And when they couldn't do that and got all smart-ass and says it would take a god to do that, he decreed that all y'all wise men and scientists and sorcerers and shit should be smoked. And Daniel says, whoa, 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 whoa. I got a better idea. Take me to see the king. And Arioch says, okay, why would I follow the instructions of the king when I could follow the instructions of young Master Belteshazzar over here? So he takes him to see the king. And Daniel Belteshazzar goes into the presence of the king and says, "O king, thou art great and impressive and powerful, and your kingdom stretches from sea to shining sea and from creation to the ends of the earth. You're very, very impressive. Please don't have us smoked. Not us, and not the Chaldeans, not even the wizards and astrologers and shit." The king says, "Why the fuck not? I am the motherfucking king. I can have y'all smoked if I want you smoked." Daniel says, "I can interpret the dream for you. More than that, I can tell you what it was that you dreamed, like your Chaldean wizards couldn't." King says, "Fucking prove it, dude. My Chaldeans couldn't do it for me. My wizards and astrologers and soothsayers and God only knows what else besides couldn't do it for me. What makes you think you can, you jumped up little..." Daniel says, "I tell you what, let me confer with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and I'll be right back." King says, okay, sure. There's absolutely no reason why I would think you would be fleeing the city under fear of being smoked with the rest of the wise and learned. Daniel goes away and he confers with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they offer a prayer to the Most High God, and the Most High God tells him what the dream was and how to interpret it. And Daniel sings a happy little song and goes back to Arioch, who takes him back to the king. And Daniel Belteshazzar says, okay, king, you dreamed about a statue made out of all kind of crap. And the long and the short of it is, you are a great and powerful king. And as long as you live, your kingdom will be great and powerful, and everything that comes after you will look like dog shit in comparison. And in someday, many, many years down the line, once the land has become all degenerate and disunited, a new kingdom will arise. And the king says, burn incense to this motherfucker. He did the impossible. Pour out oblations. Make him governor of the entire fucking city. Daniel says, I don't want to be governor. Make Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego governor. I'm going to go out and sit on the stoop. And he does, and that's the end of the chapter. Weird fucking book. And that's where we come across the, where we come by the expression feet of clay, meaning weak and flawed. Now, how this idol with its feet of clay mingled with iron managed to support the weight of an enormous statue made out of part brass, part silver, part gold, and part iron, we'll never know, but it was a dream, and we don't need to inquire too closely into dream logic now, do we? Moving right along. Daniel, 3rd chapter. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits, and he set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors and captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image, and whoso falleth not down and worshipeth, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury commanded to Bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now, if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made, well. But if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said unto the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flames of fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonied, and rose up in haste, and spake, and said unto his counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking around in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace, and spake, and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their head singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. And there we have chapter 3. Okay. So, Nebuchadnezzar, the king, having had proved unto him the power and insight and wisdom of the God of Israel, the children of Abraham, proved by Daniel, whom he tried to promote to governor, who wouldn't take the promotion and went and sat on the stoop instead, and had his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, promoted to co-governor instead. The king gets it into his head because apparently he's all about the big-ass statues. He sees them in his dreams, and he makes them in reality. Big-ass statue motherfucker. He has this big-ass statue set up in the middle of the town. 16 cubits high. A cubit's about 18 inches. Big-ass fuck-off statue. He says, okay, bring me mine orchestra, and also all of the regional governors. So they round up an orchestra, sack butt and all, and they round up all the regional governors. He says, you see that giant fuck-off enormous statue that I done made? When you hear the orchestra, I want you to worship it. And I tell you what, if you don't, I'm going to have you burned alive in an oven. They say, okay, cool. The orchestra commences to play, and everybody bows down and worships the giant fuck-off statue that Nebuchadnezzar set up. Well, that would have been easy enough, but these damn Chaldeans come out of the woodwork to make mischief among the minions again. They go to the king and say, hey, you know that giant fuck-off statue that you set up out in the courtyard? And Nebuchadnezzar says, how could I fucking forget? Look at it. 16 cubits high, 6 cubits broad. No other description, not even what it's made out of, but big as life. Yes, I remember it. And the Chaldeans say, well, you remember that you told everybody that if they didn't fall down and worship it when the orchestra starts playing sackbut and all, you'd have them burned alive in an oven? And Nebuchadnezzar says, how could I forget? Fucking sackbutts are playing outside my window all the goddamn day, and people murmuring and falling down on their faces to worship my giant fuck-off statue. They say, well, not everybody's doing it. The king says, what? They say, you know, you remember Daniel, the guy who did the impossible with the aid of his amazing foreign god, and who's now sitting on a stoop out yonder because he didn't want to be governor and made you make his friends governors instead? Nebuchadnezzar says, yeah, I remember Belteshazzar. The Chaldeans say, well, you 3 new governors won't worship your gods. They insist on worshiping this one that has actual documented powers that can read your mind and tell you your dreams. Stupid, right? King says, God damn it, ain't nobody listening to me today. And he hollers for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and summoned they come. He says, I heard a rumor that you don't worship my gods. They say, yep, that's right. We've got our own. We brought him from back home. You know this. Nebuchadnezzar says, I hear you won't worship my statue either. And you know I decreed a decree that whenever the orchestra starts playing, sackbut and all, everybody has to worship my statue. They say, yep, we heard the rumor. We ain't going to do it. Nebuchadnezzar says, you did hear the burned alive in a furnace if you don't part, right? They say, yeah, but here's the thing. If God wants to, he is capable to rescue us. And if he decides not to, well, that's on him. Nebuchadnezzar says, that's the dumbest fucking theology I've ever heard in my goddamn life. Thankfully, it will not be repeated to children down the millennia. Says, y'all, put some extra coal on the Barbie. We're about to roast us some governors. And he tells his strongest soldiers to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them on the barbecue, and they do, but the flame's so hot that it kills them dead when they get close enough, and the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fall in, and Nebuchadnezzar says, where the fuck did the 4th dude come from? He's all shiny and shit. All right. Hey, y'all. Y'all ain't burning up. Come on out. Come on out. So they do. Says, why ain't y'all burning up? Says, well, apparently God didn't want us to burn up. He says, okay, I'm going to decree me another decree. Nobody's allowed to talk shit about your God, because your God can actually fucking do shit. He can read my mind, and he can stop your ass from burning up in the fire. And they say, okay. And he says, I tell you what, if anybody blasphemes against your God, I'm going to have them chopped into teeny tiny pieces and turn their, what's my thing that I always threaten to do? Turn their houses into a dunghill. That's the end of the chapter. Oh, I was taught this story as a child. So much was I taught this story as a child. Including the extremely dodgy philosophy that God can help you. He's just under no obligation to, so you got to be prepared for the worst. As you set sail upon the sea of horrors that is the fallen world. I don't dig it. I don't think it's a good way to teach kids to think. I don't think it's a good way for anybody to think, and I certainly don't think it's a good way to raise your children to think. There's a magic man out there who you'll never see, and who might let you get burned alive on a barbecue. But if he wanted to, he could stop the bad shit from happening to you. And if he doesn't want to, you just got to shut up and take it and get burned alive on the barbecue. Or whatever. Absolutely no possible way that doctrine could go wrong, get anybody into trouble or danger, or lead you to do stupid ass shit. Okay. We've been going almost 50 minutes. I don't think we've got time for another chapter. These chapters of Daniel are rolling out to be a little on the long side. At least the stories were kind of fun. Nebuchadnezzar is kind of an over-the-top motherfucker. He's a little fun to poke fun at and improvise on a theme by. It's good that we finally got a recurring character again who's any fun whatsoever. I think it was fucking Tall Saul last time we had one. This book is full of one-offs and short stories. It's the whole thing reads like the book of Judges. Just story here, story here, story here, story here. The only through line being God is great and God is good, and we thank him for our food. And then we do get somebody who sticks around for a while, is somebody like fucking Ezekiel, who just stands in the middle of the square and shouts, woe unto them, for 3 fucking years and 50 goddamn chapters. Ugh. God, I'm tired. We're gonna call it a day. Probably see some of y'all over on Lisa's channel for Atheist Church a little bit later. I think that's today. Today's Sunday, right? Yep. All right. Special thanks to my patrons, as always. Your support means the world, and your feedback is always valued. Thank you to everybody who showed up and conversed and contributed there in the chat. I know I didn't interact with the chat as much as I often do today, but I see y'all having fun over there. Thank you for coming. To anybody watching after the fact, welcome. Let me know in the comments below how in the world you found this weird little corner of YouTube. Hey, it's YouTube, y'all. I got to troll for engagement just a little bit. Just a skosh. Oh, already had it. Shoot. Okay, sorry, my internal clock's a little fucked up. All right. As we always say before we roll out of here, everybody take care. Be safe. Stand against hate. And don't put your faith in magic, man. It ain't coming. See y'all around.